very gratifying, Miss Brewster.
You see, living here next to the church all our lives, we've seen so many ministers come and go. The spirit of Brooklyn, we always say, is friendly. And your sermons are not so much sermons as friendly talks.
Personally, I always enjoyed my talks with Cardinal Gibbons. Or my name.
No, dear, not yet. Are the biscuits good?
Boy.
Won't you have another biscuit, Dr. Harper?
Oh, no thank you, Miss Abby. I'll have no appetite for dinner now. I always eat too many of your biscuits just to taste that lovely ham.
Well, you gotta try the twins. We always put a little apple in with it to take the tartness out.
No thank you.
Well, we'll send you over a jar.
No, Miss Abby, you keep it here so that I'll be sure of having your lovely biscuits with me.
Well, I do hope they don't make us use that imitation flour again. I mean, with this war trouble. It may not be very charitable, but I've almost come to the conclusion that this Mr. Hitler isn't a Christian.
If only you were on another planet.
You're up, sir.
Oh, well, yes, Eddie.
Point your gun other way. To the west, there's your enemy. There is your danger. Japan!
Yes, yes, of course, Eddie.
No, Uncle Eddie. No more talk about Europe and more talk about the canal.
Well, let's not talk about war, dear. Or won't you have another cup of tea?
No, thank you, Aunt Eddie.
Dr. Harper?
Oh, no, thank you. You know, war and violence, Miss Abby, sure does seem far removed from these surroundings.
It is peaceful here, isn't it?
Peaceful, yes. The virtues of another day, they're all here in this house. The general virtues they went out with candlelight and good manners and low taxes.
But it's one of the oldest houses in Brooklyn. It's just as it was when Grandfather Brewster built and furnished it, except for the electricity, and we use it as little as possible. It was Mortimer who persuaded us to put it in.
Oh, I can understand that. Your nephew Mortimer seems to live only by electric light.
The poor boy has to work so late. I understand he's taking Lane with him to the theater again tonight.
Yeah.
Daddy, your brother Mortimer will be here a little later.
Delight!
Oh, we're so happy it's Elaine Mortimer takes to the theater.
Well, Miss Abby, it is a new experience for me to wait up until 3 o'clock in the morning for my daughter to be brought home.
Dr. Harper, I hope you don't disapprove of Mortimer.
Well...
Oh, we'd feel so guilty if you did, Sister Martha and I. I mean, since it was here in our home that your daughter met Mortimer.
Yes, Miss Abby, and so I'll immediately say that I believe Mortimer himself to be quite a worthy gentleman. But I must also admit that I have watched the growing intimacy between him and my daughter with some trepidation, and for one reason, Miss Abby.
You mean his stomach, Dr. Harper?
Stomach?
His dyspepsia. He's bothered with it so, poor boy.
No, Miss Abby, I'll be frank. I am speaking of your nephew's unfortunate connection with the theater.
The theater? Oh, no, Dr. Harper. Mortimer writes for a New York newspaper.
Yes, I know, but a dramatic critic is constantly exposed to the theater, and I don't doubt that some of them develop an interest in it.
Well, not Mortimer. You need have no fear of that. While Mortimer hates the theater.
Really?
Oh, yes. He writes such awful things about the theater. But you can't blame him, poor boy. He was so happy writing about real estate, which he really knew something about. And then they made him take this terrible night position. But as the worker says, the theater can't last much longer anyway. And in the meantime, it's living. Yes, I think if we give the theater another year, oh, no, thank you, Teddy. I'll go. Oh, come in, Mr. Brophy.
Hello, Miss Brewster. May I run, Mr. Brewster?
What news have you brought me?
Good. We have nothing to report.
Splendid! At ease, gentlemen.
You know Dr. Harper.
I do. Hello, Dr. Harper. We've come for the toys for the Christmas month.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's been the work you men do, fixing up discarded toys to give poor children a happy Christmas.
Well, it does give us something to do. We got to sit around the station, you know. Well, you get tired playing cards, you start cleaning your gum, and the next thing you know, well, you shot yourself in the foot.
Tate, go upstairs and get that big box out of your Aunt Martha's room. How is Mrs. Rosie today? Mrs. Rosie has been quite ill, Dr. Glover.
Pneumonia. Better now. A little wasted. Don't bother, Miss Effie. You've done so much for her already.
We made it this morning. Sister Martha's taking some for Mr. Beninsky. I will be a minute. Sit down and be comfortable. Oh.
She shouldn't go to all that trouble.
But listen, try to stop her or her sister from doing something nice. And for nothing. They don't even care how you vote.
When I received my call to Brooklyn and moved next door, my wife wasn't well. When she died, and for months before, well, if I know what pure kindness and absolute generosity are, it's because I've known the Brewsters.
Colonel, you promised not to do that anymore.
But I had to let my cabinet know before I could get the release of all supplies.
He used to do that in the middle of the night. The neighbors raised Cain with us. They're a little afraid of him anyway.
Well, he's quite harmless, I assure you.
But wait, suppose he doesn't think you Teddy Roosevelt. I mean, there are a lot more people than he would think he was.
Darn shame a night traveling like this having a cuckoo.
Well, his father, the old girl's brother, he was a genius, wasn't he? And their father, Teddy's grandfather. Well, seems to me, I've heard, he was just a little crazy too.
Yeah, he was crazy like a fox. Made $1 million.
Really? Here in Brooklyn?
Yeah, patent medicine. He was a kind of quack of some sort. Old Sergeant Edward remembers him. He used a house here, some sort of clinic. Tried him out on people.
Yeah, I heard he made mistakes too, of course.
Yeah, hardly never bothered him much. He was pretty useful on autopsies, especially poison cases.
Well, whatever he did, left his daughters fixed for life. Thank God for that.
Not that they use any of it on themselves.
Oh, yes, I'm well acquainted with their charities.
You don't know a tenth of it. Hey, look, when I was in the Missing Persons Bureau, we were trying to track down an old guy that we never did find. Do you know that this house is on a renting agency that's for this entire house on roofs to rent? But here's the thing. They don't rent rooms. But you can bet that anybody who's looking for a room to rent will get a good meal, do it, and maybe a few bucks in a kick if they're watching.
Now they're just digging up people to do some good to.